Hey everyone. Hi. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Alison Rosen is your new best friend. I'm super excited to welcome back to my show my guest. This is someone who actually was my very first guest ever on Alison Rosen is your new best friend in podcast form, but we'll get into all that. But first, I must catch up with producer Tony Thaxton, aka the bad boy of podcasting, which last week I let everyone know was a name he gave himself. Hello,
no,
Tony.
Hi. I don't know why you continue these lies.
I'm sorry.
Right through them.
Where did you get the nickname?
Oh, it goes back years. I can't even remember at this point. So many people have said it. Yeah. Allison's your new best friend. I did not know that fun fact about the guest today was your first guest ever.
That's right. Very first guest. I recorded it in my house that I was living in at the time in Hollywood before I started recording in a studio, and now I'm back in a different house. It's really part of the lore.
Very exciting.
It's the fascinating details.
I will occasionally fill in for his producer sometimes, and I don't know if he knew that I worked for you. I'm not sure if we've ever talked about that.
Well, we'll find out, but Tony, feel free to jump in at any point once we, bring in the guest, which I don't know why it's not like someone accidentally clicked on this and they're like, oh, I wonder who the guest is. I don't know why we're burying this, but it's just what we do. So anyway, Tony, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Just, nothing exciting, really. I had a nice kick in the nuts today I had an extension on my taxes, and then I finally got those done, and, a lot more money than I expected to. So that's fun. So that gave me like a real sick to my stomach feeling earlier today, but
I'm sorry.
Trying to bounce out of that.
The sick to your stomach feeling that emanates from a kick in the nuts?
Yes.
As someone without nuts, I was going to say sans nuts, but I decided why get fancy. I don't actually know what it feels like, but my understanding is it is a pain that emanates up into the abdomen.
Yeah, I don't recommend it. But yeah, it starts off and it's like, oh, that hurt. But then, give it a couple seconds and then it starts hitting the stomach. Yeah, no fun.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about that. But it does figure that the bad boy of podcasting would owe a little extra.
That's right.
So, Tony, this is now the third week in a row that I have discussed TikTok. And I just want to say I've got big TikTok news.
Okay.
It's not big. It's barely news. I was in my honeymoon period with TikTok, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would say it's cooled off.
Yeah.
Like a relationship. At the beginning, I was having sex with TikTok every time I saw it. It was the first thing I thought about in the morning. It was the last thing I thought about at night. It was also probably the first thing I saw in the morning, the last thing I saw at night. And now I'd say we've settled into just a comfort where like, I know it's there. I'm not tired of it, but I can keep my hands off of it. And if I'm being fully honest, which I am, I don't really like what the algorithm is showing me about me because it's turned into my Instagram Explore page is just dentistry, plastic surgery, and animals. Somehow, and I think it was Lauren Lapkus posted about this account, Celebrity Dentistry, and it's like smile makeovers of famous people. And then somehow I was looking at that, and then I started looking at other accounts of like veneers and smile makeovers and things like that. And by the way, I always like their before teeth better, like always. And then also like makeup and plastic surgery and things like that. And things that you wouldn't think I guess I'm curious about it. I don't know what it is. It's not like a passion of mine that I'm aware of. But then now somehow my TikTok it's just all like every single person in every single TikTok is just like a doctor or a nurse.
It sounds like this is what you're into. Two different platforms are feeding you this. I think that's your thing.
I need a hard reset. I know. And then also, I flew too close to the sun because I was explaining to Daniel, I'm like, Daniel, I have yet to see one of those annoying, like I thought TikTok was just annoying dances, but I haven't even seen one. And then I started seeing them. Now it is serving me annoying people doing annoying dances and like that hand jive thing that I can't find really annoying. And I don't know if this is proof that our phones are listening to us or proof that they're not. Because on the one hand, it seems like it heard me. And now it's like, oh, I'm going to give her that. But on the other hand, if it was listening to me and was good at it, it wouldn't have started giving me this. These are all things to think about. But some other time.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
You know what? I say enough of this.
Yeah, that sounds
Let's
good.
bring it. I'm sorry, you agreed. It was way too easy. This is what I'm looking for. I say enough of this. But this is fascinating. The people want more of this. Well, I don't want you to lie to me either. Okay, listen. Enough of this, even though it's hard for Tony to rip himself away from something that's this fascinating. But I am super excited to welcome back to the show comic, actor, writer, podcast host. You know him from his hit podcast, You Made It Weird. You know him from the HBO show Crashing. You know him from Pete Holmes' show. Tons of specials. Oh, I just said his name. Please put your hands together for the one and only Pete Holmes. Hello, Pete Holmes.
That was me clapping. Hi.
Welcome back.
I didn't know. Thank you. I didn't know, like Tony, I also didn't know that I was the first. I must have been told on the day, but I've since forgotten that I was the first Alison Rosen Is Your New Best Friend podcast guest.
That's right. Very first.
I remember that day vividly. I really do. I remember what I was wearing because I was in like a new, I think I had newly lost weight. And I don't know if you've newly lost weight and gone clothes shopping and you get a little carried away thinking you're a cool person because you lost some weight. So I bought I think I was wearing a white hoodie. Who buys a white hoodie?
Someone who doesn't spill on themselves.
Yes, and Marshall Mathers. And a black jacket over the white hoodie. And I remember I was in a fantastic mood because I don't know if you've ever noticed, when you're in a great mood, every song sounds amazing.
Yes.
It makes you wonder, is it the song or is it just your mood? Do moods just give us a place to reflect our own? Do songs give us a place to reflect our mood? Do you know what I mean? Because I remember I heard Nirvana's Heart-Shaped Box came on my iPod or something. And it sounded like the best song I had ever heard in my life. And then I went in your place and we pinged and ponged and I had a great time. But I was in a great mood then and I'm in a great mood now and I'm happy to be back. That's all I'm saying.
Now, was your great mood because of the cool clothes you were wearing?
No, the mood has to predate.
Sure. To predate, that works.
Like George Costanza, I definitely dress based on mood. Rarely I'll dress for the mood I'd like to be in 2 hours. You know what I mean? Maybe if I wear this will help me get there.
Yeah.
This is why I don't have tattoos. I don't want to look at things and have it pull me into a good mood. I only would want a tattoo when I'm already in a great mood. And how often is that? Not often enough to have a tattoo.
But you say you're in a good mood now.
I am in a great mood now, yeah.
How's your pandemic been?
I was just watching Chappelle's new special and he had a really good line where he was like, I'm rich and famous and I have no idea what your pandemic was like. He says that to the audience. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a nice way of addressing it because I know when I talk about this, there's a real chance of being annoying because if you have your basic needs met for the most part, you had a very different pandemic than 99% of the country. So I want to concede that up top, let people know that, it was really, really rough knowing how much suffering was going on. And in my own personal experience, because I had a 2-year-old baby, all I was doing was Little House on the Prairie. It was just, we were churning our own butter. we were getting up very early. We were going to bed very early. We basically just laid low and bonded as a family. And that is a real gift when you're a podcaster and you can work from home and you could do it over Zoom. That was such a gift to us. So I was able to continue to work in that way. And then the dirty little secret that so many performers and musicians that I know all had the same dirty secret, which was we didn't mind taking the time off. I didn't want to take a year or two off of stand-up, but I did want everyone to take a year or two off.
Yes, I know what you mean.
I didn't want to be the one that was like, I'm going to Vermont and I'm going to churn my own butter or whatever. I wanted the whole thing to shut down because in a weird way, that was the only way that I was going to stop.
Yeah.
And then once I stopped, like a million other people, especially in show business, you realize that there is more to life than just going around and earning your self-worth from audiences and stuff. But that not every show has to be that way, but you can get addicted to that, the adrenaline of just winning over strangers.
Right.
And then when you can't do that anymore, you have to go within, you have to go into your family, you have to go into your relationships. I reconciled, I wasn't on like bad terms, but I got much closer with my parents during the pandemic. All of these like needed, loving, healing things happened because like who we thought we were wasn't a possibility. Like we couldn't show off. I couldn't go off and be in a TV show or do stand-up. So that vanished. And then when that vanishes, you have to ask yourself, well, who am I underneath that? And the answer is a much simpler person. I didn't know there was a potential for like a simpler existence, but I actually did enjoy it.
You mentioned The Dirty Secret. And it's interesting. I've heard both. Like I know that Jen Kirkman, she just tweeted about this, that she stopped touring in the pandemic and she doesn't miss it. But then I do know comedians who at the beginning had a real hard time with it because like you're saying, they're just, they're so used to that way of life and that boost. At the beginning, was it hard for you?
Well, I also think it might not be that they're addicted to it like I was. It happened to me in a good time in my career as well, meaning that itch to perform is usually an extension of your ambition to get somewhere in your career that you're not. So you want to like stay in the mix.
Right.
This is like what LA is, a whole city of like staying in the mix. And when you're as privileged and fortunate as I am to have had a few projects, it was way more natural to be like, this is okay. I'm okay vanishing. But if you haven't yet appeared in a way that's satisfying to you, that can be psychologically difficult to be like, imagine if you were a younger comedian and you were just starting to break, like you just got Montreal and then they cancel Montreal. I bet that would have been much harder for me. But if I, you mentioned my credits, like going from the talk show to the crashing show and then with the podcast, I'm sort of already at a point where you're like, okay, the wave, I'm not saying I'm washed up. I'm just saying like the wave is calmer now. It's just a calmer wave. So I was ready to settle into a different style of life.
Which of those projects made you feel like, okay, I have appeared?
I mean, that's a fair question. I don't know. I think which one made me, I think crashing really was a literal dream come true because I loved girls. And when my talk show was canceled, I had this sort of like, I've told the story before, forgive me, but like the Pete Holmes show got canceled and my producer and friend Oren and I, the show was going to be on for like 3 or 4 weeks. Like we had back episodes. So no one was going to know it was canceled because it was still airing, but we knew it was canceled. So we were like in this real talk show rhythm, meaning every day we got up, we wrote monologues, we wrote sketches. We were just go, go, go. It was like being in very good shape. So we were like, let's just stay in really good shape. Like, let's just hit the ground running and pitch something as quickly as we can. And we were like, well, what do we love about the Pete Holmes show? I was like, well, the sketches were really fun. Is it possible to go to Comedy Central and just say, hey, would love to just do the sketches? Like a lot of people do sketches, but we sort of do like zeitgeisty sketches, like sketches about the current movies and the current TV shows. That's like our sweet spot. So we're like, maybe we'll pitch like a zeitgeist sketch show. And we set it up very quickly. And I remember Kent Alterman, who's a friend of mine, took the meeting very graciously. And we went in and, in that 20 minutes before you do the pitch where you're like talking, I think it was Kent made a joke. And again, he's my friend. So he was speaking candidly. He was like, well, one thing's for sure. We don't need another fucking sketch show. And we all laughed. And me and Oren were like, and then he was like, so what do you got for us? And we just acted like it was a general meeting. We were like, we just wanted to touch base and see what's up and, stay on your radar. So, but I think there's something to this. The frustration of that, or maybe the embarrassment of that, really did like sort of pull the bowstring back. It was the tension I needed because I got in my car after the meeting and I was like, I know you can do a sketch show, but is that what you really want to do? Mm-hmm. Like how many more projects are you going to get? Like if you could only do one more thing and then you'll die or you'll vanish or whatever, like what would you really want to do? And I was like, well, I have always been a huge admirer of Judd's movies. They really showed up. Judd Apatow showed up in my life in important times. 40-Year-Old Virgin was sort of when I was like a 40-year-old virgin. This is 40, which features like a tense breakup because of an affair happened after my wife and I split up because of an affair. So he kept like mirroring my life. And then I really liked the show Girls. And I was like, well, that's what it would be. It would be a dramatic comedy in the style of Girls. And I was like, well, I might as well go for broke and pitch it to Judd. So that was like on a Tuesday. And then I think because he had done a sketch on the Pete Holmes Show, he had watched the show. And that meant a lot. So he took the meeting. It was on the set of Trainwreck. And I think it was on that Friday. I know it was like 3 days later or something. I was in LA and I flew to New York to pitch it to him. And you could say the rest is history. Really what started was a very laborious process of multiple scripts that I would write for him, huge, embarrassing purge documents about everything humiliating I remembered about my divorce, long conversations, lots of follow-up, and then 2 pitches. One of them passed. So it wasn't quick. It took like 6 months or something. Mm-hmm. And then the show. The reason I tell you that whole story is because of that moment when I was like, what would you really feel like? Okay, I rang the bell. It would be an HBO show with Judd Apatow. So that did make me feel psychologically legitimate. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's something you have to give yourself. I know plenty of people who have HBO shows or equivalents that are miserable and still think that they're, bird shit. So it's completely possible that I could have done that and still been unfulfilled. A lot of people are leaky buckets in this business. So really, I think when I was doing the talk show, I felt pretty arrived too, because I was with Conan. I've been very lucky, Alison. It's been very, very fortunate.
Do you not consider yourself a leaky bucket in that way? And by leaky bucket, I'm assuming you mean the thing that is like pretty, I want to say standard with performers, which is like this sort of bottomless need for validation. I wrestle with it myself.
Well, Alison, you really have to choose which Pete Holmes you want to interview today.
I would like to see all of them.
Because they all take 2 hours. So you really, it's these opening moments of the podcast where you really, I'm not saying you have to be careful. I'm just saying it's like you're choosing which track we're going to go on. And I really love the spiritual track, but it might not be the best episode. But I do a lot of spiritual work on myself, and that has made a huge, huge difference in my life. And I think maybe one of the most profound, especially as a performer, is that there isn't an undying need to win it back from other people. Because it's Harry Potter realizing he's a boy wizard. Every fairy tale is about this. You're born into some foster care. This is Cinderella, in some sort of system where you feel like you have to earn your worth. Mm-hmm. But then you always find out that your parents were really wizards, or your parents were really kings and queens. And not to be too religious, but that is the awakening that you realize that you belong to something greater, that you belong to life itself. You could call it God, but to exclude fewer people, you could just say life. Your life isn't about you. You are about life. Mm-hmm. And you are life. And when you realize that you have magician parents or royalty parents and that you have royal blood, that's the awakening of every fairy tale. You get a lot. And when you really drill that into you through experience, through meditation, through contemplation, through study, through the people that you have in your life, through having it modeled by other people that you can see, you do start to get the message that you're like, this is stupid. It's stupid to go on Instagram and see if people like your long hair. That's one of the biggest changes I made is I'm off social media, and it has a huge positive impact on not living like that. That's the performance principle. Is like, is the latest thing I've done cool? Is it popular? Do people think I'm sexy and funny and interesting? It's like, or you can just opt out and go like, you know what? I do what's written on my heart to do. You're invited to enjoy it. If you don't, that's fine. There's lots of things I don't like, but it's a fool's game to keep going to the hardware store for milk, which is another way of saying to go to strangers for love. Or I would say to even go outside of yourself for love. I'm married. I can be codependent. I can be needy. And my wife is incredibly affectionate, incredibly psychologically supportive. But the primary function of our relationship is to, like Ghostbusters blasts, the love blast, to shoot them into each other, to amplify the love that we have inside of ourselves through one another. I don't go to my relationship to get as much as I go to give. And I think that's something that was hard learned for me.
And by the way, we have to talk about the social media thing because, as you know from the beginning, I've got a social media problem.
I didn't know that. Did we talk about that?
No, I just mean me talking about TikTok. Like I spend.
Oh yeah, from the beginning. Yes.
Yeah, like I spend too much time there. So we'll get to that. But I just want to clarify the realization, the fairy tale mythology realization that you're a wizard, or that you have fairy royal blood in you, or whatever. Is that the realization that you matter simply because you exist?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. You're looking for a ticket to the show, and you are the show. Mm-hmm. There's a great Alan Watts quote, which really helped me flip how I thought about myself. So a lot of us think of ourselves as visitors in this world, like you're not the world. But he says, bang the table. You didn't come into the world. Like you think when you're born, you came into this world. Your parents brought you into this world. Alison Rosen came into the world. But Alison Rosen came out of the world.
Right.
You are a product of undulating energy and waves splashing into each other and bursting. You are as natural here as an apple on a tree. An apple didn't come into a tree, it came out of the tree. Mm-hmm. You are relationship itself. You are flow itself. And when you realize that, and again, it takes more than just hearing it. You have to hear it about 1,000 times, and you have to tell it to yourself, and you have to make it part of your consciousness, like your conscious brain. But you can feel like you are not a stranger here. Because even though I say that, we often do need experiences. Like Harry Potter needs to go to Hogwarts and see the magic. Mm-hmm. And then it slowly unravels. He doesn't just find out his parents. What happens when he finds out his parents are wizards? He doesn't believe it. This is the hero's journey. You get the call. Neo gets the call in the office. You're the one. He doesn't believe it. He goes out on the ledge and he gets scared and he gets caught by the agents. Why do we love these stories? Because this is the story of the human soul, if you'll allow some spiritual language, or the human psyche. But psyche just means soul. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anybody knows that. It's a synonym.
I didn't know that.
Psyche means soul. We don't use it that way, though, so it does have a different meaning. But we all need to, the first thing is you hear someone maybe talking like this and be like, hey, you are of divine blood. You are of royal blood. And the reason we love those stories is because it's the journey we all have to go on. But the first thing you do is you resist. There's a great story about, there's a baby wolf that is separated from his pack. And then these sheep take over the wolf. They raise the wolf. And they with their wool, they make him a sheep outfit, and they teach him to eat grass, and the wolf is eating grass. And they even teach him to baa. So there's a baby wolf. He grows up into a grown-up wolf. He's got the wool, and he's baa like the sheep. Mm-hmm. And then one day a wolf comes by, sees this, and goes, what are you doing? You're a wolf. You're divine. Wolf isn't better than sheep. It's just the story. So he's going, you're divine. You're a wolf. And the wolf has only ever been a sheep. He's like, what are you talking about? And he takes some meat and he gives the meat to the wolf sheep. And the wolf sheep chokes on it, like we all do on the truth. We all resist. For some reason, love and acceptance is rejected it takes practice. It takes self-love. It takes self-forgiveness. You have to hear it over and over. And sometimes you need a loving teacher to shove metaphorical meat into your mouth and show you and chew it and go, you're a wolf, and take your clothes off and show you, to mix metaphors, that you're the golden Buddha. There's another one about Buddha. There was a war in China, and or it wasn't a war, it may be more like a pirate situation. Like there was another village coming into this monastery, and there was a huge golden Buddha in the middle of the Zen monastery. And to protect it, they didn't want them to ransack it. They covered the Buddha in mud. So it would look like a stone Buddha, and it worked, and it stayed there. But for hundreds of years after that, everyone died, and everybody just thought it was a stone Buddha. This is us. We are golden Buddhas. We are covered in mud. Some of the mud comes from social media. There's a lot of people telling you ain't shit. There's bad parents. There's bad culture. There's bad society. There's bad religion. There's bad theology. There's a lot of things that tell you you aren't shit. You don't belong here. You better get rich. You better get famous. Your podcast better triple its numbers. You better get more sponsors. You better impossibly get younger as you age. I won't even touch what it's like to be a woman. It's way worse. But all of this bullshit is the bullshit covering up the golden Buddha. And that is what spiritual practice is to me. It's not about I go to heaven and you go to hell. That is the boringest, stupidest reduction of nonsense that it's an embarrassment that that's what passes for religion these days. And it's what I was taught. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about true conversion. I'm talking about true transformation. And I'm talking about true salvation, or you could say enlightenment, which is realizing you've never been separate from love or from God or from the truth or from the mystery or from the infinite, except in your mind. You are already there, and it's your mind that is a liar. It's your mind that's a thief. It's your ego that tells you you ain't shit. And we need to work with different practices to silence that so you can break the shit off and realize you're gold, or go to Hogwarts and fuck up Voldemort. Why every movie is about this? Iron Man, you have to get shrapnel in your heart because it's often a wound, a heartbreak, in my case, a divorce that really makes you question who you are. And then you build a suit. That's your ego. Now you have a nice, healthy ego and you go around and you're impressive. But in the end, you have to take it off and die and wake up to who you really are. And Tony Stark, Avengers Endgame spoiler, realizes that he's not a selfish piece of shit. He's actually a Christ figure, and he dies for everyone. You know what I'm saying? This is the human journey. This is why if you went and saw the Avengers and it didn't go that way, a lot of people would walk out and be like, I don't know why, it just didn't ring true. It didn't feel right. Because mythology is in our bones. It's a collective dream we're all having. It's an intuition. It's a heart knowing. And the best stories catch up with the heart and say back to it what it already knows.
So for me, part of this whole pandemic has been kind of reckoning with my need for external validation that I found at different times in my life. It becomes even more exacerbated, and I become even more sensitive. And I had a day, and I have talked about this before, but it's been a while. I had a day where I was looking at Instagram, and someone really big was on someone else's podcast, and I had not reached out to this person even. But I was like, oh man, like that person would never come on my podcast, but maybe whatever. Regardless, somehow I went so fast from feeling fine in my own skin to feeling worthless, invisible, rejected, all the negative stuff. And I had this, for some reason I was able to like get outside of it a little bit. And I was like, oh my God, am I going to feel like this every time someone else gets a scintilla of attention? Because if so, it's going to be a miserable life. And I was like, and I know that I have the tools inside of me to think my way out of this and to feel my way out of this. I mean, the tools inside of me, and also I'm in therapy. But it was sort of this epiphany where I realized like I can build myself back up to feeling whole. And all of this is just ephemeral. So you said that you're not really on social media anymore. Can you talk more about that? Because that is a huge source of pain for me that I can't quit.
Well, that's the joke. I haven't told this joke on stage, but I go, it's only been a month. But for some reason, sometimes you quit smoking and like, I think I quit smoking.
It feels like it's going to take.
I'll tell you why I feel confident that it'll take. Well, the joke is when I tell people I quit social media, nobody says why. It's like saying you quit heroin or something. Everybody's just happy for you.
Yeah.
And all the people that make it, we know all this, but this is similar to what we were saying before. I can tell you are a divine daughter of the universe. It takes more, unfortunately. In the same way I can tell you Instagram is heroin. I can tell you with teenage girls it leads to suicide or increased numbers of suicide. I can tell you from experience it leads to mindless spending. I have weird shit showing up at my house. I'm like, when the fuck did I order this massager? Like, it's just like, because it's got me by the nose, it knows what I like. It's like, this guy likes relaxing. So it shows me ads for massagers and then I buy one and I'm like, fuck, I'm really kind of on a wheel, right?
Yeah.
I'm really somebody's pawn in this moment, but none of that actually changes people. None of that actually converts people. And I also want to say, Alison, again, talking about which Pete you want to talk to, I relate so hard to your story. I'm not floating off my cushion.
You think you're better than me?
Very New York.
You think you got it figured out?
I just want you to know that I think you're just being more honest than most people.
Oh, thank you.
Because that is the experience of social media. And I tried talking about it on stage for a while where I was like, I'd go on Instagram. It's all comedians and other people I know. And I'd just be scrolling through. And if you watch your mind, I'd be going, you ain't shit. Fuck you. I'm better than you. You're like better than me.
The most base shit.
Well, it's literally dualistic thinking.
Yeah.
It can only tell dualistic stories. It's only engaged with in a dualistic way for the most part. You either like it or you don't. You have a mean comment or a nice comment.
Right.
I mean, I guess the comments could be more subtle, but it reduces reality into a product. Obviously, that's what they would say that's what they're doing.
Yeah, they're like, oh, then check mark. We hit our goal.
But here's the weird fucked up thing is that so spirituality really comes down to are you identified with your ego or are you identified with your essence, with the light shining through. There's pick your metaphor.
Right. My New York therapist would have described it as your higher self.
Your higher self is okay, but sometimes people say higher self because that's just Alison Rosen kicking ass. I mean completely away from Alison Rosen. I mean not your thoughts, the presence behind your thoughts that's watching your thoughts.
Yeah.
And this thing was never born. It'll never die. And it's invested in your life in the way that it's watching the thoughts about how invested you are. But it's pretty impersonal, actually. It's a little slice of being itself. That's a good way to put it. So the ego doesn't like that we're in the business of sort of proving that it's a straw man. Because your ego, to kind of give that a definition, is really just a tapestry, a mosaic of thoughts, experiences, things people tell you are. Alison, you are a woman, you are a personality, you are Jewish, you are this. So they're reflecting back these things to you. And pretty soon you start to believe that you are those things. Pete, you are Lithuanian, you are tall, you are loud, you are a bit much. And you start going I am all those things. No, right? And and as a comedian, I've learned so clearly what my ego is that you can rent him and I'll bring him to St. Louis at 8:00 on a Friday and you can pay to watch him. But that's not really me. In the morning when I wake up, I sort of slowly remember that I'm him. I put him back on.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
You know what I mean? So it's a little play we're doing. You really feel it when you go home and see your parents and you start reading from a play that you wrote in 1986.
Right.
They start treating you like they did when you were 10 and you treat them like you did when you were 10 and everybody's reverting. And also you can see how unreal it is in how much it changes. Spirituality is interested in what doesn't change, meaning the hum in the fridge, not the contents of the fridge, but just the hum, right? So this brings it back to social media. The ego will take a suffering Alison that is insisting and feeling that the ego is real over vanishing. Mm-hmm. So what I mean is it will have you get angry and feel jealous and petty and all these things that you just were kind of saying you don't like. At least then it exists. And I would notice that I would do that. I'd be scrolling through Twitter replies or whatever, and I wouldn't stop until I got a really good bad one.
Oh, I know what you mean.
So who is doing that? I really think it's because it was counterbalancing. You do meditating, hallucinogenic experiences, whatever it might be, where you're having spirit consciousness, you're becoming something else. And ego gets threatened, and ego is like, I would rather be real and think I'm a piece of shit than vanish. By the way, I do want to point out that I'm not trying to get rid of my ego. I'm just trying to realize that it's not really the fullness of who I am. Mm-hmm. I don't treat him like something I'm trying. I love him. He's beautiful. He protected me when I was a kid, when the world was just legs. You know, he got me food. He got me a job. He's beautiful. He's valid. He belongs in this world too. It's just like when we're afraid of dying, it's that part of you is afraid of dying. And that part of you does die. So it's really best not to get attached to something that's written on running water. You know what I'm saying? Like sorry to quote Jesus, but he says, don't put your treasure where moth and rust corrupt. He's like, yeah, do it. Like, live your life and do stuff. But if you start going like, I am Alison Rosen, well, I have really bad news for Alison Rosen. She's temporary. This is Buddhism. We've shifted from Christianity into Buddhism. That's all going away. So don't waste your time getting too upset about who had Dave Chappelle on their podcast or whoever it was. That's really just a waste of the potential of connection and flow and life. Do an impression of an enlightened person. Yeah.
It's a distraction is sort of how I look at it. Like all that energy spent getting all twisted up over something like that is sort of a distraction from what life could be about.
Exactly. And what do we know life is about? Again, Richard Rohr, who's a Franciscan who really changed my life. He's like, a lot of people that do terrible things tend to be isolated. And it's interesting when we go into our higher place, into our more less neurotic, more connected to the wizard parents or the royal blood, when you can feel that trust, you do tend to engage more. You tend to connect more because you're no longer just a bit of data walking around trying to take care of that bit of data. You realize you're a part of one thing. And all of the great monotheistic religions have this idea that this is just one thing, that you and I are just having a dream that you're this and I'm this. And that's a beautiful way to kind of access that flow, because then I do want to spend more time with you. It doesn't matter if we don't agree on everything. It doesn't even matter if I don't like everything about you in this example. We can find something behind it, something true or something deeper. So
you mentioned at the beginning that you were able to get to, I don't know if you said the word repair, but you were able to get closer to your parents. Can you talk a little more about what was going on and sort of what's going on now?
Yeah. It would apply to your Instagram story. And this is a Buddhist thing, but one of the teachers that changed my life, her name is Byron Katie.
Oh, yeah.
You know Byron Katie?
Yes, because when I was living in New York, by the way, have I mentioned I lived in New York? People give me shit for mentioning all the time. So the joke is that I never mention it. A friend of mine recommended the book. We were both like dating and in pain because of dating. And she has some book that's like, what is it? You might know it. It's like, is this true?
I wouldn't. I like that one.
Is that what it's called though?
I need your love. Is that true?
Yeah. It's like you question your own sort of automatic thoughts, beliefs. If your thoughts are bringing you pain, question them because it might not be true, however you're interpreting a situation. So that's how I know who that is. Yeah.
And that one has a great title. Just for the people listening, the book that really, because I've read all of them, Loving What Is really the best one, I think, to start with. But she's a very, very interesting and brilliant and wonderful person. And that practice, it's called the work, and it's very easy to describe. So you have a thought, that person would never do my podcast, right? You were even doing it naturally when you just said that, and you're like, is that even true? Like, you're causing yourself this suffering based on, predicated on something that's false. And when someone, this is called awareness of thought. It's one of the types of kind of like yogas of Buddhism, I guess you could say, to blend some different traditions. But it's a practice. You have awareness of your thought, you have awareness of different things, but the awareness of thought is taking a moment. What I did was, on my podcast, I was always going on and on. My mom's not Jewish, but this is typically a Jewish problem. She's Lithuanian, which I always say is close enough, is that she was sort of an overloving mother. And I had, because of therapy, I'm not putting down my therapist, Dr. Gary Penn. He's a genius. I love him. He changed my life. He has a book and a podcast. You should check him out. He's awesome. But I think through therapy, I had built a story. I think I had done most of the building. I don't think Gary Penn directed me that way. But over the sessions, I was building a story. My mom had an inappropriate amount of love to me. It was emotional incest. It was all these things. So it had driven a rift between me and my mom, as it would. Not meaning we didn't see each other, didn't talk, but there was like a coldness there because I was always going like, hey, you were not cool, right? That's a minor way to put it. And then what I did, this is how the work works. You go like, my mom was in love with me, like romantic love with me. So this is how the work works. It's 4 questions and a turnaround. You go, is it true? Most people are going to go, yes. Which is why the second question is, can you know for sure? Absolutely, it is true. So the second question is
the second question is like, is that your final answer? It's
exactly.
Like giving you a moment to rethink.
It's like a cop going, are you sure about that? Like, are you sure you want to tell me that's not your bag? So the second question really, but that is what awareness is. That is what spirituality is that pause. It's a moment of let's get out of the neural grooves. Let's get out of our habitual thinking patterns, which is like, I thought something, it's true. That's a pattern that we all have. Again, Richard Rohr says, the addiction that we all have is we're addicted to our own way of thinking. And we all need to like get sober. And this is a way of getting sober. So the second question is, can you absolutely be sure that it's true? The reason I like this example is you go, my mom was in love with me. How do I know what my mom was feeling? Even if she told me, like you can't know. Sometimes I tell people I feel things, but it's not even true inside. Like there's so much bullshit going on that you have to come clean and go, you know what? I can't say for sure that was true. Right.
Right.
Then the third one is, how does it make you feel when you believe that? And I go, it makes me feel small, makes me feel scared, makes me feel vulnerable. It makes me feel angry, all these things. Then the fourth one is, how would you feel if the opposite or if it wasn't true? And I always go, I would feel free. I would feel spacious. I would feel alive. I would feel glad. I would have love for my mom. I would be less judgmental, all these good things. Then the real doozy is, what is the turnaround? And this is when you can sort of do therapy to yourself. The turnaround on my mom was in love with me is I was in love with my mom, right? So this is you can save yourself the $500 to see a therapist and just go, how was that true? And and list out some of the ways that that's true. Or the other turnaround is, my mom wasn't in love with me. How is that true? Well, you know what? My mom never did anything inappropriate with me. That's true. So that's evidence that she was not in love with me. She had, like a lawyer, you could be like, she had the occasion to do it. We were constantly together. She could have been like, I'm in love with you. Let's run away. I don't love your father. She could have said that. We were constantly together. She didn't say. So you start building evidence to prove the other side. Now, I understand, especially with traumas like that, it's sensitive. People want to own what happened to them. And I'm not talking about or hypnotizing yourself in a different way to say something that didn't happen. It gets tricky, and she is way more qualified to explain this process. I'm just telling you what I did specifically. But it works with everything. My mother doesn't respect me. My father doesn't understand what I do. Okay, what's the turnaround? My father does understand what I do. What's the evidence of that? Well, when he came to see me in Boston, I saw him laughing. But you delete those. You delete them because there's this weird, perverse desire to have your pain, to make villains, to know you're right. And the best way to know you're right is to have a good adversary. Fuck you, Dad. And like, I did the work on so many beliefs that they all just went away. Some of them may be true. Maybe my mom was in love with me. But the point is, like, I don't know. And it's not serving me.
Right.
So I'm going to say it's as true as it's not true. And that leads to a dissolving. Again, I understand. Please don't think I'm saying every trauma can be done like this. We have to have respect. My wife, Val, for example, has said that it doesn't work with everything. And I have other friends that say it doesn't work with everything. So I'm not trying to say this is the one-stop shop. That is what made me reconcile with my parents. Because I realized I wasn't talking to my parents. I was talking to a story that I had made of this woman who was in love with me and this man who doesn't understand me. And then when you move those filters out of the way, you can see reality clearly. What are they doing right now? What is happening right now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the limits of that, tell me if you agree with this, would be if in doing it, you leave yourself vulnerable again to something that's going to hurt you. But you're talking about feelings from childhood that are not persisting right now.
Well, it's interesting. Well, you could do the work on that. My paranoia is keeping me safe. Is it true? I mean, you'll have to do that for yourself.
Right.
My brain is screaming, yes. Worrying helps. Anxiety helps.
Yeah.
This is our little preparation that we do. This is why consciousness of thought helps. My paranoia is preparation to keep me safe. You know what isn't safe? Feeling small, feeling pinched, feeling angry, hating your parents. When they text you, you get a feeling of dread. You know what feels great? Being here, being now, being open, being present, and not fighting adversaries that may not be there.
Yeah.
So of course your brain is going to be like, don't do that. You'll be a sucker. You'll buy a bridge in Brooklyn. You'll lose all your money. You'll lose your job. You won't be funny. I mean, if I'm funny, I'm evidence that that's not true. The more clear I get, the more free I get, the safer I feel because I'm facing reality for what it is. 90% of our thoughts are repetitive and useless. And our brains, the trick of all tricks, has convinced us that it's in our best interest. Fuck you. You work for me. I don't work for you. You're an instrument of my body. And when I tell you to shut the fuck up, you shut the fuck up. That's what meditation is. That's what practice is. They just say it nicer.
So are you still in therapy?
No, I haven't been in therapy for many, many years, but I loved therapy. And I'm definitely pro therapy. And I think that's why I like to say there's like psychological levels and there's like spiritual levels. Sometimes the spiritual level is like, you know, one of my great teachers, Ram Dass, says like, you know, we're all kind of going around with our fake identities. Like we're wearing spacesuits and like we're doing now. Oh, Alison, you're the host and I'm the guest. And we're all just kind of, instead of talking completely real, we just kind of tell each other that our suits are on straight. And we all know that feeling. There's sort of like a smell of bullshit. And kids can really sense it. Kids are like, why are you talking this way? Like when I saw my dad talking to someone who hired him to do a job, why are you talking in a subservient way? Or why are you talking in an alpha way? Why are you changing because we're playing all these little roles. And I have heard Ram Dass say like, when your suit doesn't work, you go to a therapist and the therapist teaches you how to wear their suit. But I think there's some value to that. Like on a very surface, beautiful level, I needed Dr. Gary Penn. His mantra was always, so what? I would tell him something horrible that I thought, or something weird turned me on or something. And he'd be like, so what? And that's the voice of Dr. Penn. And I needed that. And we live in a world of symbols. I'm a big fan of Jung. Remember what I said, when you want to be converted, it's very helpful to be with people who can model a greater level of compassion, a greater level of love. And with a therapist, it's a greater level of self-forgiveness and incorporation. So he was a father figure to me. So here's a man. I needed a man. because I have a father wound. And he was sitting there going, so what? And that stayed with me. And after I heard him say, so what, to 5,000 different confessions, I finally was like, I think we can go to once a month. Then we went to once a month for a while. And then I was like, I think I'm good. And now I love him. And if I'm ever in a pinch psychologically, I haven't done it, but I know he's there. But I don't want to get so hoity-toity in the spirit stuff that I want to like dismiss mental health.
Right.
Talk therapy helped my life and it changed my life. And I think it can change. I hate the stigma of it. My parents, even my father was like, you don't go to a therapist. Like he was embarrassed. And I was like, I've told you many times I go to a therapist. Like I'm still pretty sure he's deleted that I go to
Right.
I go to a therapist, even though I'm
like,
very vocal about it.
Peter is in therapy? Is that true? He's doing the work on that.
He does the work on his son. Yeah, maybe.
You mentioned noticing when people speak in a different way, like in different environments. And I have always been very, very sensitive to that. And I notice it. And I have this overreaction where I almost feel betrayed. And I don't know what that is, but like, what? Like, you don't like, oh, if like, you don't use that word. You don't use that word in that way. Like, why are you shape shifting?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm the same way. It makes you feel unsafe.
I guess, yeah. Maybe. But I mean,
parents,
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say they didn't get along. They still, I mean, they're great and they have their own dynamic. But like when we were kids, it was rocky. It was pretty rocky. And so I equate safety with like consistency.
Yes.
And being understood. So this is good psychological stuff, like identifying. So putting all the woo-woo aside and just saying like, Val, my wife, it's really important for both of us that we've identified that a fundamental need for Pete is to know that he's being understood. And if he doesn't feel understood, he might act weird at a dinner party. You know what I mean? And that sounds like Val gets mad at me. She doesn't. She's the most patient, beautiful beam of light I've ever known in my life. But like part of our job as partners is helping each other know what makes the other person feel safe.
Right.
And for me, I really just found this language, like I need to be understood. Of course I get up in front of people and try to make them laugh because a laugh is, we get it. Did you get the joke? Mm-hmm. So something that makes me feel safe is having people follow me. I want to be followed. I want to be understood. Because when I was a kid, and again, it's not to over dramatize how it was growing up. There were a lot of great things about my childhood, but I felt like I had to keep tabs on everything. And if I was noticing something was different or askew, I would go, this isn't safe. Mm-hmm. And I'm still that way.
Yeah. Yeah. How old is your daughter now?
She's 3.
So how has fatherhood, how has it been, first of all, but then also, is that bringing up stuff from your childhood for you?
A little bit. I was kind of bitter. Again, it was before the pandemic. I remember people would say, did having a baby make you understand your parents more? And I would always say it made me understand them less.
Same.
Yeah. And there's some truth to that. They were doing, I'm not just saying this, really, Alison, I'm really taking a moment to own it. They really did the best they could, and I'm grateful. And because of their love, they raised a child who then had a child and will hopefully do better. Mm-hmm. That's how the world works. Let's just keep doing better. And Leela will do better than we did. This is ideally how things will go. But I mean, when I'm like, think about like having scream fights, in the house with children, I'm just like, I would rather die than subject my daughter to an unsafe environment. But why? It's because I felt unsafe. Mm-hmm. So there's a gift in that suffering. And the gift gets paid to me. I get to now enjoy a very peaceful house. When my parents visit, they're always like, it's so peaceful. I'm like, yeah. And my daughter gets to benefit. And I wouldn't have done it I don't think I would have done it as fervently if I hadn't experienced the suffering.
Yeah.
And I'm using that term very generally. So that was my sort of snooty answer. But having a baby has been the greatest thing in the world. And it's like having something, it's very simple, but having something outside of you. I had that with Valerie, and now I have it with Valerie and Leela. It's incredibly healthy. Talk about getting off social media. A baby is the opposite of social media. It's real. It's here. It's really listening to you. It's really with you. You can really listen to it. Unlike your phone, when I look my daughter in the eye and don't even say anything, but just present myself, it's going to make me cry, as solid and there for her without saying anything. I don't have to say anything. I just lock on to her and she locks on to me. That is the opposite of going on and seeing if my YouTube video has any new comments. I never did that. YouTube comments are the worst. But the more we can give our life away, and the more you can give your life away to life, not to synthetic life or fabricated life or packaged false realities. That's what a daughter has been for me. And that's what marriage has been for me. And that's where the juice is. I know I sound sort of like an old person, but I really am uncovering, like, it's here and now. It's in this conversation. It's right here. Stop waiting for something to happen. Stop waiting for something to happen to be happy. The way you feel, Tony, right now, Alison, the way you feel right now is your life.
Yeah.
This is your life. And this conversation is shaping your future. And that's a beautiful potential. We're having a conversation that will possibly blossom into a better future because we're talking about love. We're talking about patience. We're talking about compassion. We're talking about flow. We're talking about connection, and we're connecting. So everything rolls over into the next thing. I could also be hit by a bus, but how was I crossing the street before I'm hit by the, you know what I mean? Like it does matter. It's happening. It pays forward. And I will die one day. It's both.
Well, hopefully not anytime soon. Listen, Pete, speaking of connection, this is not a good segue. I call myself, and have been called by people who've heard me say it first, the queen of segues. And I feel
and
that
the bad boy of podcasts.
Yeah. So is this a nickname you gave yourself? Is that what you're saying right now?
possibly. I can't. It's all very fuzzy. I can't remember now. Someone came up with it. Was it me? Was it someone else? I don't know. I think it's indisputable. But all I'm saying is, I just want to talk to you guys about the Ring alarm. We have a Ring alarm. We love the Ring alarm. Protect your home with the Ring alarm. For a special offer, go to ring.com/best friend. It's the perfect way to start your Ring experience. Okay, so we have a Ring doorbell. Many people have a Ring doorbell. I cannot imagine life without the Ring doorbell. I love it. It's indispensable. I didn't realize that Ring made an alarm. When we moved into this house, we wanted to get an alarm. Well, my husband mostly wanted to get an alarm system. And we started looking into them, and there were issues with each of them. I didn't really want to have a service come out and get it set up. And then I don't know. I had just read a lot of stuff that made me go, that gave me pause. And then I was talking to the guy who straightens my hair, who is the perfect consumer. He researches everything before we talk about vacations. We talk about products. We talk about everything because he's like the internet in human form. And I said to him, do you have an alarm? And he said, oh, yeah, I just bought the Ring alarm. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that they have that. And he's like, yeah, I bought it and then I set it up myself. And then I was very intrigued. And I came home and I told Daniel, we went out and we got it. And it's great. And then shortly after that, we went on vacation. This was back in the before times. We went on vacation. And it was just really great to know that we could monitor our home from far away. And it just gives you peace of mind. Like I said, you can set it up yourself very quickly. It works. If you happen to have other Ring products, it works seamlessly with them. It's just, they've thought of everything. And it's great. Protect your home anytime from anywhere with Ring Alarm. Go to ring.com/bestfriend for a special offer on a Ring Alarm security kit today. You can build the system that's right for your home and have it up and running in minutes. That's ring.com/bestfriend. Again, ring.com/bestfriend. Okay, and we're back. So Pete, you are going to be in a new show where you play a bowler. Is this right? A professional bowling dude?
See, going from the spiritual stuff to the ad was like was a lane change, but going from the ad into like show business feels just right. So thank you. Because that is an ad. Now we're plugging my show. It's called Smallwood. It's on CBS. I believe it starts in January. And the question I always get is, do you bowl? And I have my first bowling lesson on Monday. But everybody bowls a little bit. That's what's fun about bowling.
But now, is this a show that you also are behind the scenes, or are you just in front of the camera?
No. And Alison Rosen, my new best friend, can I tell you?
Please.
When I was on HBO's Crashers, I used to look. I always say it wrong for fun. I just saw Jermaine Fowler last night. He did my Largo show, and he's the best. And we were laughing, and I was just remembering how much I used to resent the actors. Not in a real way.
Right.
But in an Instagram way. In just like, when you are the creator and the executive producer, all these things mean nothing, by the way. They're just words for the person who's making the show.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean anything. But to be fancy, the creator, the star, and the EP, and the writer. One of the writers. There's just so many hats. Mm-hmm. It's a ridiculous number of hats. And what a privilege. And I'm so glad I got to do it. And it was incredibly fun. But it was incredibly hard, too. And I used to look at the actors eating donuts, farting on set, laughing. Not really farting, but they really were laughing. They had bits. They were sitting in chairs. If someone yelled cut on my show, I would then walk over to the wonderful, hardworking producers who would then show me an audition for one of the actors, or they'd show me a wardrobe choice for someone, or they'd show me a set, or they'd show me a cut of something. Again, as I'm saying this, it's been so long since I've had that sort of like fancy lifestyle. It sounds really fun. But I also know that it was really a lot harder than just being an actor. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying just being an actor. I'm just saying...
No, but having a defined role and where you get to stop thinking about it at times.
Oh my God. We shot the pilot. So I already know... And I just did a movie. They're doing a Home Alone reboot for Disney.
Oh, cool.
So I got to do that. And that was the first time since Crashing I've done just an acting job. And I was like, it's like going from the owner of a restaurant to a waiter. And there's a lot of brilliant waiters, and waiters are probably the most important part of a restaurant. I mean, with the food. But like, the analogy falls apart. But what I'm saying is...
I know what you're saying.
I got to be on the set of Home Alone and just be a waiter. And I fucking loved it. And then I did the pilot for Smallwood, and I fucking loved it because all of my energy went to being funny and doing a good performance. And then I had all of this energy left over. I'm going to say 60% of my energy was still in the tank, and I just wasn't used to it. And you know what you use that 60% for? I can't wait to tell you. Being a nice guy, having fun, talking to people, getting to know the boom guy, getting to know the AD, the stage manager, all these things, eating Starburst, sitting on the set.
Farting on set.
I definitely farted a few times on set, all involuntary, but it had to happen. I'm 42. It's going to happen.
Hey, I love to talk about farts.
I mean, me too. They're the funniest thing that we're not talking about. But I just loved the experience. And Mark Gross, who wrote it, who's incredible, is a stand-up as well. And he will graciously ask me for input on the scripts. But it's just that. It's just asking, what do you think of this? Or if I want to pitch a joke, I feel comfortable doing that. But I really trust him. Tommy Johnigan is one of the writers who's incredible. Forgive me, I don't know the whole staff, but I know Tommy's on it. And I just trust. I get to trust, show up, and do a good job. And that feels really like a great change of pace from, again, the privilege of doing everything on a show to just acting. I'm really looking forward to it.
You mentioned the 60% being used to be a nice guy and eat Starburst and fart, the American dream. But when your tank is low, what happens when you're on empty?
I mean, I think I just get very quiet. I'm not like a blow up person. It's very waspy. It's very
Is it Lithuanian?
Pinched. It's a little Lithuanian, and it's very morose. I just get like, my feeling is I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. And I can't be who they're asking me to be. And mostly socially. One of the weirdest and sort of perverse things that doing a show about your life can do to you is it starts to blur the line between your job and ordinary interactions with human beings. And I think this is what the metaphor of selling your soul to the devil to play the fiddle is really about on one level, is that there's this cost you pay. When life is sharing and engaging, and you make your job sharing and engaging, I would find when my energy was really low, in between scenes or takes or whatever, someone would very nicely just want to talk to me. And I remember I would talk to them because I'm like a people pleaser, codependent, all these things. It seems like you agree with that. Like, I'd rather die than be considered a piece of shit or rude.
Same.
But really what I should have said was like, it's not a great time. And with the people that I really love, like my assistant Paige, I hesitate calling her my assistant because she does so much. And she was a producer on Crashing. But like, Paige is a person that I felt safe enough to be like, I just need a break. Or Judah, the producer, or Oren, who I mentioned earlier. These are the people that you could be like, I just need 5 minutes. But most everybody else would get this. But in my mind, I'd be talking to them and I'm like, this is what I do for my work. Like, someone would be like, where are you from? And I don't feel this way. But in those moments where my tank was on empty, I'd be like, you're asking me to tell you in an engaging and interesting way that my mom's Lithuanian and my dad's Irish and I'm from Boston, but really I'm from Lexington, but I say Boston because when I say Lexington, people think I mean Kentucky because I look so corn-fed. Like, I don't want to do that performance for you, but that's fucked up. That's not living in the moment. That's not drilling into your inner resource. That's just like being worked so hard you forget yourself. And
it's also not establishing your own boundaries and then being angry at other people because you're not taking care of yourself.
It's 100% on me. But like, here's a small one. I'm hesitant to say it because it seems a little diva-ish. But again, I went into season 1 of Crashing being like your podcast, I'm going to be everyone's best friend. I knew everyone's name. And I talked to everybody in between takes. But the example I want to give you is in the morning, the driver would come. And I loved all the drivers. All the union guys had the most interesting stories. They always had great senses of humor. And I really liked them. Donnie, Ryan, I'm saying that to
show that you're really a man of the people.
I'm virtue signaling, I believe they call us. But I did love them. And then by the 3rd season, I realized you have to sit in the back. It's the only time you have. I just couldn't handle having a van pull up to my apartment or whatever and getting in the back. It felt like such an asshole thing to do. And then through therapy and having friends that realized that the game of trying to please everyone and then eventually resenting them and not liking them for giving them what they thought you were giving them freely.
Yes.
Is a fucked up, manipulative, and dishonest thing to do.
It totally is.
Even though I really do love those drivers. I mean, if I saw Ryan was the season 3 driver, if I saw him, would be excited to talk and have fun. And when I had energy, we would talk. But in the morning, and it's a 14-hour day, and you're in every scene. I know, boo-hoo, you're a star of a show. But it's hard. You have to save your energy. That's when the earphones go on, and it's just, that's the signal that says, I do love you. And this is the only time I have to take care of myself. I know I sound a little bit like Oprah, but I bet Oprah would have a brilliant answer to this. These are generous people. These are gracious people. These are giving people. And I'm sure some diamond sharp therapist was like, Oprah, you need to take care of yourself. And when you're with your partner through a 58-hour labor, which that's Val's story to tell, you learn to drink while you pour. I don't know if your partner heard that. That was something they told me in pregnancy classes, they were like, while you're taking care of Val, remember to take care of yourself. I was 100% there for her, but I was also eating a protein bar every time I thought to, because I'm also a person worthy of care.
She had a 58-hour labor.
Can you believe it?
Because I had 41, and I thought that I had everyone beat, but this is really wow.
40.
I was an induction though, and those take forever. So
yeah, I don't know much about inductions and non-inductions, but Val did have a natural, to a certain point. I think it was hour 50 she got an epidural, but she went through it for 58 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she is incredible.
And she went into labor on her own.
Yeah, she was not induced. Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just taking that in.
Oh, for people that don't know, that's extreme pain every 3 minutes for 58 hours.
Yeah. My God.
That is a level of torture that, I mean, the United Nations would be like, we have to stop.
We have to intervene.
58-hour labors. Like, this is inhuman. This is strange and unusual punishment. But it's happening in our bodies. Every 3 minutes, she had excruciating pain.
Oh my God.
For 58 hours. Yeah.
Was she traumatized? I mean, you said it's her story to tell, so I don't want to ask.
Oh no, she wouldn't mind me telling it.
Okay.
I don't think she was. I hope I don't feel like I'm forcing spirituality into everything, but like what I've done with psychedelics, which is like sort of like death experiences, she had with her labor. And it sounds like you probably had with your labor too. And it is a death. The you that wasn't a mother is dying. In the same way the 12-year-old Alison is also dead. You know, dead is such a hard word. I'm just saying these are big changes.
Yeah.
And that's what life is. We want to think it's this consistent thing, but really it's constantly changing. I mean, this podcast has been 90 minutes. We're different people than when we started.
No, it's less than that. It just feels like 90. I'm just kidding.
I thought we started at 2. You know, I was on the Zoom at 2. You guys were a little late. So I've been here for 90 minutes.
Alison was a little late.
I was a little bit late. I was a little bit late.
Thank you, Tony.
All right.
See, Tony's a double agent. He's a You Made It Weird tech and an Alison Rosen tech, so he's going to play both sides here.
I don't know if I like that very much.
I know. And I don't like how petty I was for calling you for being late. But we were riffing.
It's okay.
Everything's fair in a riff.
We're pinging and ponging.
We're pinging and ponging, baby.
Ponging.
We're pinging and ponging.
That's right.
I don't even remember what I was saying. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, just for people who don't know, and I think, because you've been on my show multiple times, I think pinging and I think this even came up.
Was number one.
Yeah, number one.
Okay. Yeah.
You joked that you and I were pinging and ponging, and then we started signing emails, ping pong or PNP. And then I saw you on Marin, and you mentioned pinging and ponging, and I'm like, oh. And I think I asked, I'm like, is that a thing you had said? And you're like, no, I think like you had, it had grown out of this. So I felt very honored.
You mean the TV show?
Yes.
Yeah. I believe that is correct, because we were improvising and I probably just pulled pinging and ponging. I definitely pulled pinging and ponging.
I love
straight from Alison Rosen.
I love it. All right, listen, we have lots of things to do. Let's see. Let's just take a few questions from listeners. I'm on Patreon, patreon.com/Alison Rosen. Patreon bonus episodes of The Friend Zone. Get all your questions answered. Guests, all sorts of stuff on the Friend Zone. There's a level where you can text me and I'll text you back. Oh my God, what unfettered access. Zoom parties, Thursday show videos, submit carbs, submit questions. Patreon.com/Alison Rosen. If you sign up for a year's annual subscription, you get 2 months free. So it's 12 months for the price of 10. Okay.
Questions from our fans.
All right, Whitney C says, what's something you've done that could be described as out of character for you?
Whitney Cummings, what are you doing chiming in on the show? Out of character, something I've done that's out of character for me. Ooh. You know when you're looking up but you realize you're not thinking?
Yes.
You're just like, I'm just looking like I'm thinking.
I find myself, and it's been a long time since I've been at a restaurant, but I'll do that with a menu where I'm like, I'm just I'm glancing at it, but none of the words are entering my head. I'm out of practice.
I roasted Blake Griffin, who's a basketball player. Yeah. And that was so out of character for me, but I'm hesitant to say I like roasting people because it actually sort of puts me in a very judgy place, which is super fun on the day. But then it usually lingers for 3 weeks after the roast that I'll be at the airport and I'm like, look at this fucking Gilligan's Island hat or whatever. And I just don't love the state that it puts me in.
Yeah.
It's kind of like as close as I'll come to like boxing or something. And it's because the pitch of it is so high. But that is my answer. I roasted Blake Griffin. There's no video of it, which I'm glad because these roasts are part of the point is that they're inappropriate and whatever. But it was, I think, a surprise to everyone there how for the jugular I went. I'll tell you who didn't mind, Blake Griffin. He's a huge comedy fan and he loved it. And it was definitely a tie. He definitely cut my jugular more than once. So
what was it for?
It was in Montreal. In Montreal, they do roast battle. I think, I don't know if they do it every year, but it was like a midnight show. I mean, this was outside of my character for many reasons.
Yeah.
I go to bed at like 10. It was started at midnight. It was incredibly mean. I can't even. Every joke I can remember, I can't repeat on. I can't. But everybody called it Mean Pete. I had to like become a persona to get more comfortable with roasting, even though I do really like writing a good roast joke.
Megan Parkansky, when's the last time you texted / talked to / hung out with Aaron Rodgers?
That's so weird, man. Because I just got a text from Scott Rogers, who's a friend of mine. And for a second, I thought it was Aaron Rodgers. And I was like, that's a real synchronicity for me.
Yeah.
Well, I could tell you because it was probably over text, right? This feels sort of obnoxious, but you asked. Aaron Rodgers. I texted Aaron Rodgers in 2019.
And did he not write back?
Aaron Rodgers, I'll give you the ratio.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons why Aaron Rodgers and I do get along, actually, he's very good at replying. But the last text I sent him was about my book, and I'd love to send you one. So, Aaron, if you hear this, which I'm assuming you will.
Oh, he's a big listener.
He's a huge friendo. What do you call your listeners?
I don't really have a name for them. I mean,
from now on, it's friendos.
Well, friendos, yeah. If he's on Patreon, then he's a friends with benefits. But I think he's a friendo. Friendos, that's good.
He's a friendo. March 21st, so close to my birthday. I usually see him I've seen him a couple times on my birthday because we have similar friend groups. Anyway, this is boring.
That's interesting.
2019. Oh, I was going to say the reason we get along is like Blake Griffin. I've never seen him play football. So to me, he's just like a very handsome, interesting man. So I just treat him like a handsome, interesting man, which is a level up from like how I treat, regular folk because he is dashing, but I've never seen him win a game at the last second. So I don't have that reverence for him. So we can get along kind of as human people.
Oh, here's a question from Alison Rosen. Are you real life friends with Bo Burnham?
Well, I think this adds to Bo's mystique. Bo is so I think he wouldn't mind me saying, he's a true artist. Like when I see Bo, even though he's my friend, I get excited. Mm-hmm. Like it's like a thrill for me to see him. I'm not nervous. That would be weird. But it is sort of like, there he is. Only to say that he, like his last special, which of course, of course it's brilliant, but I think it's brilliant. It's exciting to see Van Gogh, like walking in the Mall of America. So that's how I feel when I see Bo. And if I'm being completely honest, he will often say things like, we should hang out, and I won't follow up. And this is on me because I have such a deep respect for him. I don't want to bother him. I know this sounds like I'm blowing smoke, but like I have some people like that in my life where I'm like, you're so brilliant. I don't want to interrupt. And I don't want to be like, hey, Bo. So I think the last time I texted Bo was just, I didn't know what to say about his special. So I said, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. I wanted to thank him, and that was sincere. But I definitely am like, he's not going to reply. And then he does reply because he's not Van Gogh. He's He's a sweet guy. And whenever he does my Largo show, he's gregarious and engaged. But for some reason, I filed him in my brain as Van Gogh, and you don't bother Van Gogh.
I totally get it.
Right?
Did you guys become friends through him coming on your show or through?
Yeah, like the conceit of your show, I would say the past 10 friends that I've made have been from my podcast. And Bo is definitely the most requested return guest. He's done the podcast 3 times, and I know he doesn't want to talk about Inside. So I haven't asked him.
How come? Do you think?
Why he doesn't want to talk about Inside? I think this is just my interpretation. It's based on nothing that he said, is that the work is the work. I mean, the work is so communicative.
Right.
Why do you want to go on the radio and have people be like, so were you really inside or what's going on there? You know, like it's a waste of his time. Again, to my point, it's a waste of his time to go on KTLA morning show and talk about it.
Right.
And also in the coolest way, he doesn't need to. So anytime we're back to those boundaries, anytime someone goes like, I'm being understood, I don't need to do press. Like people are finding it. Then please keep doing that.
Lee Brunn says, holy cow, more Batman videos. And even though it didn't get picked up, fantastic job on crashing, comedy scene, inside jokes, knee deep every episode.
Wow. I completely understood what he was saying, even though that was kind of written like somebody was rolling dice that had words on them. Love crashing, big time. Tour de force. I couldn't even do an impression of it. It was so random. Here, I love the Batman videos. I would happily do more. Here's the problem. They cost like $30,000 to make.
Wow.
I can't believe I'm saying this. I never paid for them. They were always College Humor or something like that. And we want to do, we had an idea for a series, sort of like X-Men, but with Batman. And we want to do it, but it's literally like trying to put together a shoot for a pilot. It would take as long and it would take. So we were like, maybe we would crowdsource it. So really, what was this person's name?
Lee Bruns.
Lee? The question is like, if we did a GoFundMe, is it ridiculous to ask for $150,000? Because I think that's what it would cost. Like Thomas Middleditch, a lot of the people that we like love using. I'm trying to think of other people. These people have like rates now. You know what I mean? Like we did those videos before these people were super famous. They'd still do it for friend rates, but you still have to give them some money. This is a boring answer. The suit, the lights, it costs so much money. If we could just do it cheap, it wouldn't be the videos that we love.
Yeah.
It has to look really good.
Right.
That's part of the joke. And Oren Brimmer, who directed all of them, that's part of his vision, is like, it needs to look exactly like the movie or as close to the movie as we can, because that's part of what makes it funny. If you shot that on TikTok, it would be stupid. It would be like a viral thing for an afternoon. But I think what makes those so special is that, you know, they got smoke machines and they have like not film cameras, but nice cameras, and Patton Oswalt, like there's a lot of effort. So the short answer is I'd love to when we have time, and it would be interesting to maybe crowdsource it because that would speed things up.
That makes sense. All right, let's do Just Me or Everyone.
Is it just me or everyone?
All right. This is where we share things that we think or do and wonder, is it just me or is it everyone? And listeners, you please send some of your own in. Tweet them to @ariynbf on Twitter. And that's where you do your tweeting. And use the hashtag JMOE, just me or everyone. Okay, Pete, do you have one?
I think so. And we were just saying off mic, I hope I didn't do this one before. But is this just me or everyone? I respect the Beatles. But I have never listened to them, and I've never wanted to listen to them. I've never been like, Alexa, play the Beatles or the Beach Boys, all these things that so many people are like, have this deep reverence, like, oh my God, Pet Sounds? You don't listen to Pet Sounds? I'm like,
it revolutionized the studio.
I just can't. I want to hold your hand. I've never wanted to put it on. And then I had a baby. Sometimes I'll put it on because it sounds like baby's music to me. Honestly, a lot of it sounds like a daytime festival. Desmond has a barrow at the marketplace. Like, it sounds like the chorus should be like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Like, should be teaching me something fundamental about, and I know that's the time. So if I was 16 when that came out, I would have fucking loved it. And when I was a kid, I loved it. But now that I'm grown, is it just me or everyone? I don't want to admit it, but I don't like a lot of what people hold up as like the best music, like the Beatles.
Okay. I'm just going to say there's no way that is just you, but it is funny that you mention it because Tony, I can't remember which episode it was, but weren't you saying that like you still feel like the Beatles haven't gotten their due? That's how great they are.
Yeah. I basically said, yeah, I do. I think although they are the, greatest band of all time and there will never be another band bigger, I still think they're better. They're underrated and like they're like still ahead of their time.
Wow.
Well, in many ways.
Is it possible that I agree with you and I feel the way, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
When I say I want to hold your hand, you're a Beatles fan. You're not putting on I want to hold your hand. You're putting on Revolver. You're putting on later stuff. So I know how I'm wrong, and I think that's important. But here's an even better one. The Rolling Stones are the same way. Like I know the Rolling Stones are incredible.
I don't
like the Rolling Stones.
See, there you are.
Yeah.
Everybody has some version of it. It's not just the Beatles. It's like there's just so much stuff that I feel like I'm supposed to like that I don't like. What's a good one? Game of Thrones. I know it's good.
I'm with you.
I know it's good. You are?
Yeah, I don't.
No one
I never.
agrees with
I
this.
watched like the first season and a half, and then I hit a point where I was like, "Why am I watching this? I don't care about this at all."
Do I work for you? Like I have to know these areas. I've watched the pilot of Game of Thrones again. No one be mad at me. You can tweet at me. I won't see it. But don't be mad. I've watched the pilot, which is so clearly good, 3 times, like trying to get into it, like just 3 times. And I'm just like, I can't. Too many realms.
There is. It's a lot to keep track of. I tapped out before Red Wedding because for me, it was just getting too, I can't really handle a lot of violence and gore. And it was just getting too upsetting for me personally. But I did recognize it was a good show before that. So
Yeah.
Oh, now I have to ask you, have you watched Schitt's Creek?
No, but Val loves it. Val, and she has very good taste. Yeah. I'm weird with comedy. And please don't take this as like cool comedy. People don't like comedy. I do like comedy, but I'm weird with it. And Schitt's Creek is, from what I can tell, literally just from the name, probably. Like, I'm just like, I don't know if I'm in the mood for something silly like that. I don't know. Even though I like silly and being silly, when I'm sitting down to watch something, this is why I should like Game of Thrones. I like watching things that are like slow and like heavier. Like Mad Men is my favorite show of all time. And I actually had to make a pact with myself. I was like, you can't watch Mad Men anymore. I said, unless you do a podcast about it.
Why? Was it too much of a time suck for you?
Yeah, I was just, it was literally a compulsive behavior. I was doing it too much. And people do that with TV. I don't think it's that weird. So I'm not giving myself a hard time. But I was like, that's enough. You can have watched Mad Men 6 times. It's over. And since I got sober, it's way less fun to rewatch. I used to watch it and, you drink and it's like a fun drinking friend show.
You know what I didn't like? I didn't like when what's his face was writing in his diary and we were hearing his inner monologue.
Oh yeah.
How'd you feel about that?
You couldn't find a bigger fan of the show, but that is I'm going to say 2 things about that, similar to our Beatles thing. One, pinpoint laser accuracy onto a flaw of the show. Okay. That was a hard pill to swallow. And 2, it was so helpful to me because in that monologue, when he's swimming and he's writing in his dialogue, he says, I wish I had any semblance of control over how I feel. And up until that point, I didn't know Don Draper felt that way because he's so clean and so put together. And when I heard that, I was like, that's really the only way you were ever going to learn that was a diary and inner monologue. So, Matt Weiner, you were right again. Although I did cringe the first time. I was like, I don't know about this.
It's weird. You'd think you'd want more, but from him, I didn't. Listen, Pete Holmes, now that you just said that you got sober, of course I need to ask you about that. So you're just going to have to come back.
Well, I will say, if anybody's interested in drinking less or how I got sober, there's a book called This Naked Mind. It's written by Annie Grace, who I met in Denver, who's wonderful. I recommend the audiobook. And I can summarize. I talk about sobriety enough that I can really summarize in one thing.
Yeah,
the whole point of the book is we've been told, or I feel I had been told, that getting fucked up, getting loaded was like the ultimate act of liberty. Like, it was like, I'm the king of my life. And the book really persuasively, among other things, one of the things it really did convincingly was actually your alcohol's bitch. Like, it made, I'm sorry to use that word,
That's
but you
fine.
know what I mean? Like, there's no good word for that.
Bitch is fine.
Subservient. Yeah, we're comedy people. We use bitch a little more colorfully than most people, but it made you a subservient to alcohol. You've actually been had. And I really don't like being had. Mm-hmm. But I also just noticed I was becoming very unconscious with my drinking. I'm a very abundant person. Like, it's meaning if I like something, I like a lot of it. There's a lot of good side to that. But the shadow of that is that, like, sugar is hard for me. Alcohol is hard for me. Weed can be hard for me. It's better to, like, stay clean for myself.
Had it gotten dark?
Not really. In fact, I'm glad you asked, because I don't think you need a sexy or a dramatic rock bottom to realize that something has taken you over like a parasite. Alcohol is one of the most addictive substances on the planet. Nobody ever told me that. You either thought you were a regular person or you were an alcoholic, like you had a special gene. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is, no matter how much you're drinking now, you were probably drinking more than you were. And that's because you build up a tolerance, but you're also addicted to it, so you're going to keep drinking it. So it's little facts like that that just sort of help me wake up. My rock bottom story was that I came home, our friend Sam was staying with us, and I think it was the presence of someone who didn't live with us in the house. Really, I just picked up, I like sake? And I just picked up sake and just started pouring some sake. Like, I didn't even have the thought, I could use a drink. I was just doing it. And don't get me started on like wine women culture. Don't you see that, like, these corporations don't give a fuck about you? Like, it's wine o'clock. Mommy needs her medicine. The best part of cooking is wine. These things are made by wine companies.
Right.
Don't you like,
to make it cute.
Why is it so easy to recognize that McDonald's put sugar in the French fries and go like, well, that's fucked up. Well, yeah, alcohol is itself the sugar. It's the addictive thing. And then they're not putting sugar on it. They're putting masculinity on it. They're putting liberty on it. They're putting freedom on it. They're putting de-stress. You know what doesn't make me de-stress? Having heartburn and being woken up an hour and a half into my sleep cycle because I have to pee, because that's what you do. So you never get REM sleep. Like, it's like a fucking weird thing. It's like a cultural thing. By the way, Val sometimes drinks. My friends drink. I'm not like going around telling other people not to drink. I just realized at a certain point, I was like, fuck this. It goes back to spirituality. Like, it goes back to being your own supplier. You want to get high? Do Wim Hof breathing. Go on YouTube, type in Wim Hof breathing 3 rounds. Do that. You will get high on your own supply, quite literally. Get high on oxygen. I did it this morning. I did 10 rounds. One of my favorite feelings. You want to get high, exercise. You want to get high, connect. You want to get high, play some fucking video games, but you don't, even that might be, I don't know. But like, don't just do the thing that everybody's doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, oh, you're an American male. Drink whiskey. Fuck off. Have the courage to at least follow your own dream. If your dream is whiskey, and I know people that really love the culture and they can handle it, it seems, go for it. But it wasn't my calling. I was sold a bill of goods. Yeah. That's my sobriety speech. And if you're drinking, please don't feel judged. But for me, life has been better. It's been 4 years, so I'm still kind of new at it, but life is a lot better. And I also don't want to be a purple-lipped, spit-flecking dad. Kids see that shit a mile away. You dumb fucks. You think your kids don't notice your dumb Merlot purple lips? And you're going, you know what you should do is if you learn how to play the piano, you'll always have a job because you can play in a restaurant. fuck off, you goddamn demon. Get the fuck out of my face.
Yeah.
You're so scary. You're so red-faced. You're so sweaty. I'm talking 2-3 glasses. You don't have to be fucked up for a kid to go, what's up with dad?
Yeah.
And that was a real moment. I was like, this ends with me. My daughter will know I'm there. And if I'm grumpy or weird, at least I'll be clear enough to deal with it.
I think that's great. You know what else I think is great? Was that sentence properly constructed?
You know what else I think is
I don't know why it sounded weird to me. You know what else is great? It's when you leave a nice comment about the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you're subscribed.
That does help.
It helps much.
I was just going to say we were shitting on social media. That's not social media. That's a mitzvah. That's a nice thing.
Yeah.
It helps the algorithm. It helps more people hear this nice show.
Thank you. Make sure you're subscribed or following or whatever they call it in your app of choice so you get the podcast automatically. Tell your friends. I still am on social media currently, so follow me on social media at Alison Rosen on Twitter and Instagram. And I mentioned Patreon already. Oh, and this whole episode is on YouTube, youtube.com/Alison Rosen. Go there, subscribe as well. Pete, where can we find you? What should we be looking for?
It always means a lot when people watch Crashing. It's on HBO Max, right next to Curb, which I'm honored. We picked the right letter for the title of our show, so people going to Curb can accidentally discover our show. And, just because I'm proud of it, the Batman videos, all that stuff is on my YouTube channel, as is all of the talk show pretty much for free. Ad free as well. It's all there. And even though as we talked a lot about it, you can follow me on socials. It's all just Pete Holmes because my assistant will be posting when we drop a new podcast, that sort of stuff. Just announcements. If you want just announcements, it's not going to be me monologuing shirtless in my kitchen or, like normal social media. But if you want updates on what I'm up to, it's not beneath me. Please follow me on social.
Okay, good. Because when you said you're not on social, I'm like, oh, great. So does that mean you're not going to retweet about this episode? So it's good to know your assistant, Karen.
No, she can retweet it. Absolutely. I don't think it's harmful as a thing. Alison, it's a big topic.
I know.
And what level is it my privilege that I'm like, well, I'm at a place where I can. But you know what? When you're at a place where you can, you should. And if my daughter was trying to be a painter and she needs to be on Instagram for that, I can't go like, well, you should be off it. Like, that's one of the most annoying fucking things in the world is when someone quits smoking, that week they're telling smokers how they should quit smoking when you just quit smoking.
Yeah.
Like, remember that you were a smoker a week ago and I was a social media person a month ago. So I'm not acting like, and maybe I will go back on it. I hope I don't. But like, there's some privilege there that I can. There's also just a level of bullshit that here I am saying, follow me because maybe I'd like you to know when I put something out. So I don't know. I don't have it figured out. Do what's right for you. What's working for me. My anxiety is so much lower now that I don't have people messaging and being like, stop having your wife on your podcast, like projecting their hate on me.
But did you not feel, was it at the very beginning? Like, because for me, it's a compulsion. So it would be hard to stop.
Well, Alison, you don't need me to say this. It sounds like you're addicted, a compulsive behavior.
Yes. But for you, was it not that? Like, did you not want to
go? My screen time was, I was on my phone about an hour and a half a day. That was my number.
Oh my
what's
God.
yours?
What's mine?
Yeah,
what's mine?
Yours?
According to my screen report, 7.5 hours.
A day?
Yes.
I'm sorry, that was judgmental, but
oh no, that's fine.
Let's be gentle to Alison. We love Alison and we don't want to scare her or hurt her.
Okay.
Right? So it's in a loving way. But it goes back to the drinking thing. You're giving your life to something that doesn't care about you. It doesn't love you. It doesn't care if you're angry or delighted. It just wants use the word they use. It just wants your engagement. Mm-hmm. So it can build a profile to send you better ads. And worse, to just kind of have a grotesque corporate understanding of you. And the more you're in that it's like having your ego projected into a product. And then you start believing that that's who you are. And that's all of us. I'm not saying that's unique. And I'm not just saying quit. For me, like quitting psychedelics we didn't even talk about had a huge part of that, reintroducing me to my real self. I'm not saying people should just go out and indiscriminately do psychedelics. That just happens to be part of my religion, let's say. So just like you wouldn't go out and become kosher, you shouldn't necessarily go out and do psychedelics. But for me, I needed like mystical religious experience. I needed to be pushed off a cliff, metaphorically speaking. I didn't just will myself to quit. So we could be surgeons and try and remove your phone addiction or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, no, it is.
That's too judgmental, but help lower your phone usage. That's a surgery. I think we could treat the symptom and do certain practices like Byron Katie's The Work, like meditation, like whatever spiritual practice calls to you, and therapy and all these different things, because that's dealing with the symptom. Because who are we when we're not? What does it feel like to not look at your phone? That's really
I wouldn't
the
know.
question. Yeah, you wouldn't know. But I mean, and that's why we have to be gentle with Alison. She might be feeling anxious. She might be feeling afraid. But this is David Foster Wallace. When we have our needs met by things that don't love us, something's wrong.
Yeah.
We're jerking off to porn, nothing wrong with it, but I'm just like, it doesn't love you. You're not in the dance. You're not eating at the banquet. And to get spiritual again, you're sitting at a banquet table and you're not eating it. But that's not your fault. You've sort of been duped, Nobody's modeled a better way. Nobody's shown you how to eat, so you can't smell the food and stuff. So we're on our phones or whatever we're doing. And I still have shit that's blocking me from reality. Absolutely. But I wouldn't just say, okay, tomorrow, Alison, I'll be off my phone. I would start trying to fill your life. Yeah. This is really Pete-splainy, but like the things for me, like listening to someone read the Tao Te Ching is very meaningful to me. One verse of the Tao Te Ching every morning. Or if it's Byron Katie has a book called 1,000 Names for Joy, where she walks you through the Tao Te Ching, which is very meaningful to me. Or listening to different teachers on YouTube. Like, there's actually ways to get your phone involved in the things that'll help you get your phone on. Like when I'm on my phone now, I'll read books or I'll gratitude journal. That's a great practice in the morning instead of checking your phone to write out 10, 15 things you're grateful for. And that's not just woo-woo. That's dopamine. That's endorphins. That's adrenaline. It's wonderful to realize that you do have your hands on the controls. And starting your morning, it's not just for alcoholics or recovering alcoholics. Writing out, I'm grateful for my bed. I'm grateful for my podcast. I'm grateful for Tony. I'm grateful for conversations. I'm grateful for this nice candle that I have burning. I'm grateful for this fan. I'm grateful for Val. I'm grateful for Leela. When you do that, instead of going and seeing the big celebrity on someone else's podcast, you literally took a moment in the morning to rewire your brain to be on the lookout for more things to be grateful for. Like, you can't stop it. In the same way that Instagram makes you go be comparative, gratitude hardwires you. So you're using the shortcomings of your brain, meaning whatever snowball you start rolling down that hill is going to keep rolling all day. So if you eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch in the morning, you'll crave sugar in the afternoon. But if you start with gratitude, you'll have gratitude in the afternoon. And Wim Hof breathing, I'm sorry, I sound like such a weirdo. It's free. It's YouTube. It's basically just a 30 times and then you hold your breath for a minute and a half, 2 minutes. You have to practice before you do that. Try, Alison.
I'm going to try it. I think Greg has talked about it.
Try to be anxious after 4 rounds, 5 rounds. You got to do it for a while. Do it for 6 rounds and then try to be anxious. Like, I dare you to try to be anxious because your body is involved. We're letting the body solve what the mind can't.
Yeah.
Your mind is up there trying to carry everything, going like, what do we do? Are you and I are we going to lose our jobs? Are we going to lose our livelihood? Are we going to lose our lives? Are we going to lose our loved ones? The brain can't do it. So when we do things like breathing, like meditating, I didn't even want to recommend meditating because it's so daunting and it means so many different things. But Wim Hof breathing, guided, 3 rounds, YouTube, free. Do the whole video twice, 6 rounds. You'll be high And your body will get to carry some of the burden that your brain can't handle. That is a huge, huge game changer for me. And I think has a lot to do with the things we're talking about, getting off social media and stuff. Do it out of love. Do it because you love Alison, not because you want to be off your phone. Do it because you are a beloved daughter of the divine, of wizards and of fairy tales, and you deserve it, and you are forgiven, and you are beautiful. You've always been right here. So let's show it. Let's act like it.
Aw. I always love talking to you, Pete. Thank you.
You did. You tried to get all the Pete's. I think you did. You got you got comedy talk. We got spiritual talk, psychological talk. I really enjoyed it too.
Tony, what about you? Where do we find you?
Well, great time to say I'm on Twitter and Instagram at
Tony Thaxton.
And my podcast, Bizarre Albums, every Tuesday. And also, just a reminder, the Motion City Soundtrack 2021 tickets are on sale now, so get those.
Nice.
That's it.
There you go.
Pete, thank you so much. This was so great. Listeners, thank you for listening. You matter. I love you. Goodbye.
Hey, do you know about the Alison Rosen show?